I want to address the issue of, is Torah really legalism? Because, people say, oh, well, we can eat anything we want. He cleansed everything. And they'll use Matthew 7, or not Matthew 15, Matthew 15 to talk about it. Or they'll use Mark 7. But, I want to read a passage as to why did God create all these things about you shall not breed two types of cattle together, and you should not sow two types of seed. And with that particular one about the two types of seed, I think I brought it out a little bit in the parable of the wheat and the tares. That's why that was significant, because in an agrarian society we would understand that. The wheat and the tares. The tares were thrown away. The tares took up soil and nutrition from the wheat. Took resources the wheat could have used. And why not pull with a ox or a donkey, or why not to harm the edges of your beard, or have two types of clothing, or why you should not eat animals that are torn apart or die of themselves. People say, oh, well, that's legalism. Oh, really? Or, not harvesting the edges of your field. Oh, that's legalism. Or you should keep the Sabbaths. You should keep the clean meats. Oh, that's legalism. Oh, really? Why? Because you want to get away from it? So you call it legalism. It's just like the separation, the so-called moral laws versus ceremonial laws that people want to get away from. There's no moral thing in separating the seed, and there's no moral thing in this, and no moral thing in that, and those are all ceremonial, blah, 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 and the Sabbath and the holy days are just, those are part of ceremonial laws. Show me where you find that division in Scripture. They'll preach it in seminaries, of course. But the fact is, a lot of seminaries are anti-Semitic, and they don't understand. And the seminaries are generally geared toward whatever denomination is supporting them. But, but let's get into what the difference is between Torah and legalism. The difference between Torah and legalism is Torah has this purpose. Leviticus 20, verse 23. You shall not follow the customs of the nation, which I will drive out before you, for they did all these things, and therefore I have abhorred them. Hence I have said to you, you are to possess their land, and I myself will give it to you and to possess it, a land flowing with milk and honey. Means prosperous. I am the Lord your God. I am Yahweh your Elohim, who has separated you from the peoples. You are therefore to make distinction between clean and unclean animals. That is why you do the clean and unclean animals. Because he made the separation. It was of him separating you from the rest of the nations to be his people. That's why we do the clean and unclean meats. That's why we do the Sabbath and the holy days. Now, legalism, on the other hand, is things like you read about where Christ was talking about in Matthew 15 about how they invalidate the Word of God for the sake of their tradition. And he was like, where the Pharisees were saying, they do not wash their hands when they eat bread. And it says at the beginning of verse 2 of Matthew 15, why do your disciples break the traditions of the elders? And that's when he says, you invalidate the Word of God for the sake of your tradition. It's like where the Torah says, you shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. But yet Talmud has said, oh, well, you got to have two kitchens. It's like the difference between biblically kosher and rabbinically kosher. Rabbinical kosher is legalism. Biblically kosher is Yahweh's purpose, Yahweh's way of doing things, Yahweh's instructions. Or, about this whole thing of hand washing. That was their tradition. He was fighting their traditions. Why was he allegedly breaking the Sabbath? Because they had made fences around the Torah, saying, well, you can only travel so and so far on the Sabbath. You can't heal on the Sabbath. Which, that was their tradition. That's what he was breaking. He wasn't breaking the Sabbath. When they ask, why do your disciples pick grain, saying that, that's work. They were violating the traditions of the scribes and Pharisees. They weren't violating Torah. And in that context, you see Yeshua say, did not David and his people eat the forbidden bread out of the holy place? And there are things where, like it says, the priests break the Sabbath, but are innocent before Elohim because they are serving the people. And you see so many different things. Torah is what sets the rest us from the nations. Let's go back here to Leviticus 20 and the distinction between, you are therefore to make a distinction between clean and unclean, and between unclean bird and the clean. And you shall not make yourselves detestable by animal or by bird or by anything that creeps on the ground, which I have separated for you as unclean. Thus you are to be holy to me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and I have set you apart from the peoples to be mine. That's the crux of keeping Torah. Why do we keep Sabbath? Why do we keep holy days? Why do we keep clean and unclean meats? It separates us from the nations. Why were they not to eat things that died of themselves? Because they could give it to the Gentiles, to the other people surrounding them, but they weren't to eat it themselves. They became unclean. all these things, oh, well, those are ceremonial. No. They're to show us. A lot of the things in the Torah are there to show us the importance of separation. You know, do not sow two kinds of seed. Do not breed two types of cattle together. Do not make a garment of two types of material, the wool and the linen. They have different frequencies, ultimately, is one of the things you can read. But not rounding off the edges of your beard. Not tattooing yourself for the dead. You know, not doing rape or incest or murder. You know, those sorts of commandments are part of love. That's part of loving your fellow man. You know, not committing adultery, homosexuality, bestiality. Those are all things forbidden by the Torah because we are to be a holy people. It's not because, oh, we're hateful and we're this and we're that. No. It's what the Torah says. Because we are a holy nation. As it talks about in Peter, you are a royal priesthood. And that we are to be set apart. We are not to have incest. We are not to have all these immoral things. We are not to eat blood of animals. All of this has to do with separating us from the nations. And like it says in Jeremiah 10, do not follow the way of the heathen. You know, what do the heathens do? They make their kids pass through the fire and they do all these different things. But it says in Jeremiah 10:2, it says, do not learn the way of the nations. How do we do that? By keeping Torah from the heart. It's a heart issue. We keep His instructions. That's how we're different. And we can read in Jeremiah 10 while I'm here, for the customs of the people are delusion, because it is wood cut from the forest, the work of the hand of a craftsman with a cutting tool. They decorate it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers so it will not totter like a scarecrow in a cucumber field. Are they? And they cannot speak. They must be carried. You know, because that's things of other gods. That's a big reason why Israel was judged. Because they followed the way of the nations. They sacrificed their kids. You can read several places in the Torah, or in the Kings and Chronicles, where kids were sacrificed for whatever reason. And that's a problem. You're not supposed to put your kids through the fire. You're not supposed to do abortion, aka human sacrifice. That's why Torah is important. It separates us from the nations. It's discernment. What's clean and unclean? That's discernment. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, as Joshua says. As for me and my house, this is my house, I will serve the Lord. No matter what people think. And that's what Torah is about. It's about being separate. It's not about legalism. The legalism was things like you find in the Talmud about having two kitchens or about different things. How far you can do on the Sabbath. Shalom, shalom, may Yahweh bless and keep you and make His face shine upon you and give you peace. May you be separate.